Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent the quorum call be suspended.
Without objection.
Mr. President, the appropriations process is officially underway here in the Senate. Last week, the Appropriations Committee held its first markup of appropriations bills for fiscal year 2026. And I'm pleased to report that the committee referred two bills to the floor with bipartisan support. And today I want to talk about one of the bills that came out of last week's markup, and that's the Agriculture Appropriations Bill. Mr. President, agriculture is the lifeblood of our country. And in places like my home state of South Dakota, farming and ranching are a big part of our way of life. I know how hard American farmers and ranchers work to deliver food, fuel, and fiber to America and to the world. And I know this work can be challenging and at times unforgiving. In recent years, farmers and ranchers across the country have faced some pretty fierce headwinds. Higher input costs and depressed commodity prices strained their budgets, and higher interest rates made financing more difficult. Then there were the supply chain disruptions, natural disasters and drought, and things like bird flu, African swine fever, and the New World screwworm that threatened livestock. Mr. President, just 2 weeks ago, Republicans passed a reconciliation bill that addresses many of the challenges head-on by bolstering programs that farmers and ranchers depend on. But as I said then, farmers and ranchers' priorities are going to continue to be a priority here in the Senate. And the Agricultural Appropriations Bill is an example of that. Mr. President, our colleagues on the Appropriations Committee have reported a bill that provides robust funding to support America's farmers and ranchers. It provides important funding to the Farm Service Agency, including support for $10.5 billion in capital access for farmers and ranchers. And it supports efforts to track foreign-owned land to prevent our adversaries like China from buying up America's farmland. It also makes investment in rural development programs at USDA. In South Dakota, that money goes far in supporting water programs, electricity, and broadband programs in rural areas. This bill also invests in conservation programs, and it advances efforts to help farmers and ranchers get their products to the market. I'm glad to see support for processing capacity for meat, poultry, and egg products. And I'm pleased that this bill also promotes programs that help state-inspected plants operate across state lines, which provides producers with more options for their products and supports smaller processors. The bill also includes funding for the Agriculture Marketing Service to help facilitate greater access to international markets for American agriculture products. And the updated market data that will result from investments in this bill will help farmers and ranchers make better decisions about their businesses. Mr. President, in just the past year, the threat to our food supply posed by diseases and pests has been national news. I'm glad to see the Trump administration's actions to address bird flu and its effect on the egg supply have had a positive impact. And the Agricultural Appropriations Bill continues efforts to combat bird flu, as well as other potentially devastating threats like chronic wasting disease and the New World screwworm. Mr. President, nutrition is another important part of agriculture policy, and the bill that's been reported out provides robust funding for programs like WIC and SNAP. And I appreciate Senator Hovind's work to find offsets for increased spending on these programs. Mr. President, the work of feeding America and the world isn't easy, but I know our farmers and ranchers take a lot of pride in what they do. They know they're not just working toward the next harvest, they're keeping a heritage alive, a way of life that none of us can live without. I appreciate the work the Appropriations Committee's put in to support our farmers and ranchers, and in particular, the leadership of Chair Collins and Senator Hovind. And to America's farmers and ranchers, we'll continue to have your back. Mr. President, I yield the floor, and I suggest the absence of